Agent Morris with the NSA.
There is something real here.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had people with the first-hand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General. Biologics came to some of these recoveries.
Those could represent exquisite new adversary technology.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still in the program.
The government is covering up some level of its knowledge and understanding about what some of those things are.
The Sol Foundation, which just announced a new initiative for UFO research and policy.
It's nuts, man. I mean, we're just small-town buds who saw a UFO in the woods. I mean, now we're hanging out with the government.
Wow. What floor were you guys on?
Good evening, everybody. This is Smiles Lewis. Welcome to another live edition of Anomaly-NOW, straight out of Austin, Texas. This is the weekly live news roundup for the 501c3 nonprofit Scientific Anomaly Institute, Anomaly Archives, headquartered here in Austin, Texas. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. It is May 15th, halfway through the month. Hope yours is going well and that you haven't suffered from any of the crazy, dangerous May weather that so often plagues various parts of North America, and wherever you are, I hope you're safe and with your loved ones, and all is well. So I almost forgot. Folks can go to, of course, our website, anomalyarchives.org, and find links about us and our collections and our mission, our goals, that sort of thing. But I almost forgot. I wanted to share with you all tonight the sad news about the passing of Bruce Maccabee. Bruce Maccabee is another of the old guard in ufology, somebody who certainly, like the subject itself, had a controversial viewpoints. He was lauded by some for his amazing ability to analyze photographs as an optical physicist, to endorse or decry various UFO photographs, video evidence, and that, of course, led to all kinds of controversies. Particularly, I was just listening to some podcasts reflecting on the old Gulf Breeze, Florida UFO cases, especially the Ed Walters case, the infamous series of sightings that were reported there in the Gulf Breeze, Florida area of objects by multiple people, but particularly by Mr. Ed, who began photographing using Polaroids and trying to prove that what he was experiencing was legitimate. Bruce Maccabee endorsed that case, and that caused a lot of controversy. I won't go into all that, but we received news via the social media vines. Thank you, Carlos, for passing that along to folks. I think via the Radio Misterioso Facebook group that he had passed on May 9th. Yes, as Wikipedia says, an American optical physicist formerly employed by the U.S. Navy and a noted ufologist who studied physics at the American Institute in Washington, D.C., as well as physics at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. And you can find more online about him. We've got a little bit of information on the website about him, including this nice commentary from George Knapp. Also often controversial figure these days, but He's quoted as saying, "Bruce was a giant in the field. I suspect many newcomers to the UFO topic lack an appreciation for just how important and influential he was. Dr. Maccabee was immensely helpful to me back when I first dug into the subject and remained a friend and encyclopedic resource in the decades since then. If your library does not have his books and papers, it is simply not complete." Also, he played a mean piano and would occasionally display his musical talents during after-hours gatherings at UFO conferences. And boy, I've seen a few photos that folks have posted, some really fun, silly photos where Dr. Maccabee was cutting up, so to say, at one of these conferences, just acting silly and getting photographed doing that. But yeah, I think I recently was mentioning this rebuttal of his from way back. This is, unfortunately, his website appears to no longer be online, but thankfully the Internet Archive over at archive.org has, I think it looks like 53 captures of his website from, at least with this particular page, 53 captures of this particular page going all the way back to its first capture in March of 2001. And I know I've mentioned this idea that's repeated in the recent Arrow report that a lot of UFO sightings can be explained simply as what we all must admit, the probability that there are advanced human aviation projects flying about that are getting misidentified as UFOs, which, of course, you can't misidentify something as a UFO other than you don't know what it is, thus it is a UFO. But back in the 90s, as this article opens, CIA's UFO explanation is preposterous, says Dr. Bruce Maccabee in this article from pre-2002, March 2001. In 1997, the CIA published an article that describes its involvement in the history of UFO phenomena. The article is published in the unclassified version of Studies in Intelligence, a twice-yearly CIA journal. It is available at the CIA website. According to historian and author Jerry Haynes, the CIA believed that when the U-2 high-altitude spy plane began flying in early August 1955, quote, commercial pilots and air traffic controllers began reporting a large increase in UFO sightings. And again, this idea of advanced, undisclosed aircraft causing UFO sightings, obviously that's going to happen. There's no doubt about that. But when you go so far as to claim that the majority of cases in the Blue Book files were the result of this, it just flies in the face of the facts. And he goes on to explicate that here. And I have often cited this when people bring up the reference to that 1997 CIA Studies article. And again, that's what the Arrow report does, not actually acknowledging the fact that they haven't provided a list of corresponding flights to prove this claim that these misidentifications were happening. Anyway, we will provide the link to this over at the show in the show notes for this night's episode. And Dr. Maccabee, we wish you safe travels to the next realm. All right, so you can, of course, go to our Flipboard over at flipboard.com/@Anomaly Archives, and there will be a lot of links over there to what we're covering tonight. And I'm just going to dive right in. There's quite a few things. I don't know how fast I'll be able to get to all of them, but hey, free stuff to read over at... Oh, what just happened? Well, it looks like it's working. Okay. Over at explorescu.org, that's the SCU's official website, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. Originally, it was UFO. And they've got the SCU Review 5.2 issue available. It is a PDF. It's about 30 some odd pages, and there's a lot of great fun stuff here. You can peruse it for free. You can download it. You can read it online, whichever is your druthers. We have this copy of it brought up here. There was a fireside chat with Richard Hoffman, one of the founders, where Robert Powell, another founder, and Austinite, and both of them were former MUFON folks who left that organization in favor of founding their own new organization. And there's just kind of getting to know their founders here. There's also a letter to the editor from a Dr. James Zhuge, Zhuege, on reverse engineering now. Ooh, I like the use of that now, an exclamation. But I gotta say, I was a little surprised in looking at that letter. The fact that it basically is all about the claims of certain disreputable people who, again, are very controversial and are not really the types of sources that I think SCU has wanted to focus on, but maybe we all need content, right? But I was kind of sad to see this letter being printed that references, of course, Day After Roswell by Philip Corso. That person actually has become even more interesting to me because of their inclusion in, of course, Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science journals, which I keep mentioning over and over and over. But here we have, there's ongoing speculation that reverse engineering of alien technology continues to this day. The veil of secrecy surrounding UFO phenomena is often attributed to governmental efforts to engineer and utilize alien technology with some claims of success. It is speculated, yada, yada, yada. Oh, yes. It is speculated that leading aerospace and defense corporations like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon might be engaged in such reverse engineering projects. Supporting this idea, former intelligence officer Richard Doty. Okay, so there you go, right there. Why would they print this letter with somebody basically saying, well, Doty says, owing to the fact that he is such a infamous character in the UFO scene, whose antics in the 80s created more disinformation or spread more confusion probably than anything else besides the phenomenon itself, perhaps. Yeah, okay, so referencing Richard Doty, bad enough. And then at some point actually invoking the Yellow Book, which really, okay, yes, here we go. In another example, consider keeping the historical records of a civilization. In the UFO community, there is talk of a Yellow Book, a holographic technology from alien visitors that allows humans to view the history of human beings over thousands of years. Again, as far as I know, that is only attributable to Richard Doty. All right, enough of that. But there's some other good stuff in here. There is this essay by Larry Hancock, Ian Porritt, Sean Grosvenor, and Larry Gates called The Shift of Cold War UAP Activity to the Public Domain. This is actually very interesting, and what got my attention is the inclusion of Larry Hancock. You can also, there's a link in that essay over to this zenodo.org posted article, research essay of theirs that was published in late March. UAP Activity Pattern Study, 1945 to 1975, Military and Public Activities. And where I'd heard about Larry Hancock was a few years ago. I was made aware of his book, I think it's called Unidentified, and I wasn't familiar with his name, but I've since come to realize that he's considered a mover and shaker and a person of note in the UFO field, and who's particularly been delving into the connections between nuclear facilities, power plants, and military locations. And so in that book, Unidentified, if I'm remembering correctly, that was kind of one of his main premises, was that whatever this is, it seems really interested in our military bases, but particularly those that have nuclear capabilities. So there's, I'll provide a link to that zenodo.org article link. But again, back over at the PDF of the SCU review, they break down some of this paper and give their consolidated pattern analysis for 520 incidents from both military and public domains that displayed the following types of reported UAP activities. Interactive flight, multiple objects observed simultaneously or following one another over a very short period, less than 2 minutes between objects. Radical flight, observer visual or radar tracking characterized the UAP as displaying unconventional speed, acceleration, or flight maneuvers outside the conventional aircraft ability. that's the one that for me, like when people see something in the sky and they're like, I don't know what it is, it's a UFO. I was like, okay, well, was it doing anything really interesting or novel? No? Okay. Hovering in a wind, no sound of propulsion or helicopter or, that kind of thing. Maybe. Electronic transmissions. UAP was reported to have been the apparent source of broad spectrum, select frequency, or coded electronic signals received by equipment being operated or monitored by the witness. Paul Benowitz. Interference with weapon systems. The proximity of UAP to a strategic atomic weapons installation or atomic weapon carrying aircraft and its involvement with an undefined effect that hindered or prevented the use of the atomic weapon. And then these other ones as well. It just goes on and on. Loitering. Yes, I love that. No loitering here. And of course, the more interesting ones, occupant observed, occupant encounter. These are all very interesting. And so this has got some maps and charts. And again, I think I've mentioned before that as interesting as this is, I have heard some people try to skeptically debunk this idea that there's any statistically significant connection between military bases, especially these nuclear ones, and UFO sightings. It does seem on the surface, though, that there's absolutely a connection. So make of that what you will. Yep, lots of charts and graphs. Fun. There's other stuff in here. Robert Powell giving his opinion on should the government release all its classified information on UAP. Surprise, surprise. He says yes. This is apparently written for the CQ researcher. It's something I'm not familiar with, but and it doesn't seem to have a link to it. But some other great stuff here. There's kind of a bookend piece here with a history of the St. Clair Triangle by William J. Granger. And this is a very famous case from early 2000 of a classic football field-sized flying UFO triangle. And it was investigated right off the bat by the NIDS folks, National Institute of Discovery Science, billionaire Bob Bigelow's group. And let's see, they mention, I don't think they link to it, but they mention the website of Daryl Barker, whose website, Daryl Barker Productions, dbarkertv.com. Had a little trouble getting the browser to go to it, but here it is. This is a page that's been up for a long time that details this very interesting sighting in Illinois, with links to all the material that this person has collected. They also produced a documentary about it, which is online, and there is a corresponding YouTube channel for this D. Barker TV over at YouTube. And again, all this will be in the links to the show notes after the show. And there's a lot of good material. There's apparently the documentary is available for purchase, but it looks like he's put up a lot of material, maybe not the entire documentary, but perhaps extended interview clips that weren't fully used in the documentary. But that's all fun stuff to check out, I think. So yeah, back over at the PDF for the SCU review. This goes on. There's the stealth blimps. That was one of the speculative ideas put forth by NIDS. They said possibly a B-2 bomber, but that doesn't fit the silent aspect. Also, the stealth blimp, the Ariane stealth blimp, apparently never has, to our knowledge, never been reached that size. There was a preliminary tests early on. Here's a little diagram showing the relative sizes of commercial aircraft, 747 and B-2 bomber, and this football field-sized triangular craft. But there's also, the bookend there is a kind of retrospective review of that NIDS report. Of course, you can dig up all the old NIDS material, even though the website went down almost overnight after Bigelow defunded it. Again, all these details have come up in the Forbidden Science, Volume 5. So, review of, quote, hypothesis: the Illinois Flying Triangle is a Department of Defense, not an ET craft. National Institute for Discovery Science, Las Vegas, Nevada, July 2002. And as this says here, this article is a follow-up to the previous article, and just kind of reviews and gives their own secondary analysis of the previous analysis. So lots more to that issue. Interestingly enough, here I believe is the Aeron 26. Yes, I thought, yeah, that doesn't really look like a lighter than aircraft. Not really sure if that's the same thing as the stealth blimp. But there's a lot of other interesting stuff in here. But I found it kind of refreshing that the issue ends with some fiction. The Secret of the Island by Esteban Correo. And look out, there's some F-bombs in there. But, of course, it ends by saying, this story is, of course, a work of fiction. However, Dr. Richter was indeed a German scientist brought from Europe by President Padron at the end of World War II. Originally, his goal was to collaborate with the development of the first jet for the Air Force, but his specialty was nuclear physics. He convinced President Padron to invest in a project to develop controlled nuclear fusion. Don't really know the nature of the fiction story there, but hey. All right, so that's over at the SC Review, explorescu.org website, and you can find out a lot more over there about that. But what I really want to talk about is, we'll start with old RPJ, Red Pill Junkies article over at the Daily Grail. Excuse me while I wet my whistle. So, yeah, provocative headlines. Sean-Kirkpatrick has been a very provocative character. Granted, I do not doubt that he has had to weather a lot of vitriol from true believers. And there has been, as I've pointed out, some slight disinformation about the nature of the incident at his home, with some headlines incorrectly saying that a ufologist had broken into his house. But he does say that he and his family have been and are continuing to be threatened by true believers. And I do think he has a point about some things. But as Miguel Red Pill Junkie says in this essay over at dailygrail.com, he can be taken to task for some interesting points that we're going to get to. So, former Arrow director Sean-Kirkpatrick, UFO religions are a potential threat to national security. And this all came about because of this interview he did with Stephen Greenstreet, the provocative journalist over at the New York Post. Now, the New York Post is not necessarily considered a particularly reputable news outlet. They've certainly done their share of both sensationalistic and certain politically leaning diatribes. But I can't think of any off the hand, but I know that they've probably done their share of investigative exposés and reporting. I will say that I have been a fan of Stephen Greenstreet's reporting on the post-2017 disclosure, air quotes, news headlines that have been coming out, and I more or less agree with his reporting on it. I don't like the kind of nasty attitude that he takes, and the just that approach just is not my interest. But there are some very interesting things that are coming out in these interviews, and here we have Miguel. I'll quote from the article: Kirkpatrick's testimony goes in stark opposition of the disclosure narrative by pointing out that OSAP ATIP was never an official government program and that it ended up misappropriating public funds in order to conduct investigations into the alleged paranormal activity plaguing the infamous Skinwalker-Ranch in Utah, which was previously owned by the real estate mogul Bob Bigelow, before it was sold to Brandon-Fugal, its current owner. Curiously enough, though, Kirkpatrick claims in this interview he doesn't know whether there was ever an official criminal investigation launched to seek out the culprits of the quote-unquote misappropriation. And but the other very interesting thing that comes up, Another conflicting part in the interview was when Greenstreet mentioned a briefing report on Skinwalker-Ranch given by Brandon-Fugal at Washington, D.C. on April 19th, 2018. Fugal had told Greenstreet on another interview that one of the attendees to this official, unquote, briefing was none other than Sean-Kirkpatrick, who was in fact, according to Fugal, quote unquote, leading the whole thing. Not only that, but Fugal claims Kirkpatrick told him that all the people present, many of them part of the Bigelow OSAP ATIP UFO activist group, as Greenstreet calls them, were, quote, already aware of the UFO reality, unquote. Kirkpatrick emphatically denies ever saying this or even meeting Fugal for that matter. He claims he did attend a briefing at the invitation of staffers who requested his assistance as an independent third-party scientific observer, but that the briefing was focused on OSAP HIP activities in general and not about Skinwalker-Ranch in particular. To make matters even more confusing, Kirkpatrick further said to Greenstreet on a follow-up email he believes the meeting he attended took place in 2017, not 2018. Not 2018 as Fugal has said. So, all right, who's lying here? But here's the crux of what this article, this headline is about. So perhaps that is the reason. Yes, here we go. He says he still receives harassment and threats via email from true believers, and at one point a person stalking his home was arrested by the FBI, which sounds similar to the abuse received by some members of NASA's independent study group on UFOs. Perhaps that is the reason why Kirkpatrick is now saying on the record that people within the government who have deeply held beliefs in UFOs, which he unabashedly equates with religious dogma, and who instinctively reject scientific explanations contradicting these beliefs, all bold, represent a potential threat to national security, particularly if they are in key positions of authority. Quote, I think this is disturbing and should be a flag for the national security community, because how can you then trust those people if they are not objective enough to understand evidentiary-based assertions like that? How can you trust them with our national secrets? Here, Kirkpatrick is referring to what is informally called in Washington, D.C., the UAP caucus. And yes, here is, I'm in very much agreement with RPJ here. Personally, I think Kirkpatrick is going a bit too far with his flagging of the UFO topic as a potential threat within government, and should therefore widen the discussion for the sake of fairness about how personal beliefs affect a person's understanding of scientific evidence. If you cannot trust a legislator who believes in UFOs to be objective in their duties on national security policy, then what about fundamentalist Christians working on legislation related to women's reproductive rights or climate change deniers that are members of environmental committees? Seems to me UFOs are only the most recent tip of the iceberg, tip of the bigger iceberg related to scientific illiteracy permitted among lawmakers whose decisions guide the future of entire nations. Couldn't agree more. Now, since then, hit a surprising twist, as RPJ says. Brandon-Fugal shared on his Twitter account a photograph which indisputably proves Sean Kirkpatrick was there at the briefing on Skinwalker-Ranch, and he and his team gave in DC in 2018. We've got links to Brandon-Fugal's Twitter account as well as others who are chiming in. This one's gentleman Pavel Ibarameda, and it breaks down more detail this situation. There's the video clip from Stephen Greenstreet's original interview with Brandon-Fugal, where he was showing him photographs from this and telling him, no, Kirkpatrick was at that meeting. And then here's this close-up photo where Sean Kirkpatrick is looking back very, at least, or his doppelganger, as RPJ suggests. Maybe that isn't really Sean Kirkpatrick. But here's the larger picture, and apparently the date and timestamps are identical for two things that they've shown, I guess. And yeah, wow. Okay, so and so last week I mentioned Black Vault, John Greenwald's Black Vault videos about, what was it last week? Yeah. Oh gosh, now I'm forgetting. But well, anyway, he's gotten more of the emails and the email correspondence, the Signal app communications between Grush and members of Arrow and Kirkpatrick and Chris Mellon. And last week, when I mentioned this, I was taking the line that John Greenwald was saying, which was, here's the data, you decide who's not telling the truth or who's lying the most. But yeah, it seems really clear now that even more emails are coming out that Grush really does not seem to have actually ever put forth any effort to meet with Arrow, for whatever that's worth. And in this latest video from yesterday, BTS Raw number 19, that's DoD releases ATIP email, but with a twist. I haven't actually finished watching it, but it's got more details about those emails. Some stuff's been unredacted, I guess, in terms of the names. And Greenwald, in discussing this, brings up this whole issue about Greenstreet, Fugal, Kirkpatrick. Very interesting. And among the other little tidbits that came out of this was I had missed that Stephen Greer now has launched his own archive. And whether you are a fan or not, you can go to dpiarchive.com. That's the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, and it's free. You just got to sign up with an email address. And they've got their little sections cordoned off there. And, illegal government UFO false flag. That sounds like an interesting section. All kinds of stuff. Black helicopters, false indications and warning. Oh, there's one. Stagecraft and abductions. That sounds interesting. There's the Martin Cannon Classic, a new hypothesis of alien abductions, a.k.a. the Controllers. PDF of that. Jacques Vallée's CIA abduction quote. That's got to be from Forbidden Science Journals Volume 4, where it seems likely that he's referencing the Bosko Nedeljkovic documents. Unfortunately, those documents, I think, were donated to Rice and are under the 10-year moratorium. But all that information is more or less floating around already. Of course, if you're not familiar, Greer is not a believer in real extraterrestrials performing abductions. That's all scare tactics staged by the military-industrial complex. And there's some interesting thoughts there. Anyway, moving right along. Let's see where. Yep. Okay, over at independent.co.uk, a very interesting headline. AI that simulates dead people risks haunting relatives, scientists warn. This is by Anthony Cuthbertson. Psychological effect could be devastating, Cambridge University ethicists say. Yes, and so this article, of course, draws the parallels with horrific science fiction like the Dark Mirror series that deals with this idea in various ways. And this is all very real. Chat GPT, what is it, 4 or 5, whatever, just came out. And it's just the world's getting weirder and weirder, folks. Article says AI simulations of dead people risk, quote, unwanted digital hauntings, unquote. Researchers have warned. A new study by ethicists at Cambridge University found that AI chatbots capable of simulating the personalities of people who have passed away, known as DeadBots, should require safety protocols in order to protect surviving friends and relatives. Some chatbot companies are already offering customers the option to simulate the language and personality traits of a deceased loved one using artificial intelligence. Ethicists from Cambridge Leverhulme Center for the Future of Intelligence say such ventures are high risk due to the psychological impact they can have on people. Quote, it is vital that digital afterlife services consider the rights and consent, not just of those who they recreate, but those who will have to interact with the simulations, said co-author Dr. Tomasz Holanek from the Leverhulme Center. They also said, these services run the risk of causing huge distress to people if they are subjected to unwanted digital hauntings from alarmingly accurate AI recreations of those they have lost. The potential psychological effect, particularly at an already difficult time, could be devastating. The study is in the journal Philosophy and Technology, titled GriefBots, DeadBots, Post-Mortem Avatars on Responsible Applications of Generative AI in the Digital Afterlife Industry. You can find out more about this at the link that we'll post. And it draws the parallel, like I mentioned, to the Black Mirror episode. This is very interesting to me. And as a recent visit with friends had mentioned, there are psychologists and psychotherapists now dealing with people who have AI girlfriends. How long? And this article also just mentions how the bereaved could be bombarded by ads already utilizing the image and language inflection of their deceased as part of the marketing strategies. And just those marketing strategies could be devastating. Meanwhile, I almost missed this. I'll just play this 2-minute clip here. I've gotten word that the audio is not coming through. Let me try this again. Okay. Sorry, folks. I could have... So it says sharing tab audio. Let's try it again.
I am here because my music, my dancing, my acting, the way my body moves in front of the camera, and the way that my voice resonates through a microphone is not by chance. They are essential reflections of who I am. My art is a canvas on which I paint my identity and the sustaining foundation of my livelihood. It is the very essence of my being. Yet this is under threat. AI cannot replicate the depth of my life journey, yet those who control it hold the power to mimic the likeness of my art, replicate it, and falsely claim my identity and intellectual property. This prospect threatens to rewrite and unravel the fabric of my very existence. We must We did not realize that the internet would embed itself so deeply into the core of our everyday lives. Policies and controls to keep pace with the emergence of technological advancements since the internet. You know the saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If we make the same mistake with the emergence of AI, it will be shame on us.
So, sorry, folks. I'm not sure why the audio keeps crapping out, but you can read quotes of her statement. This is an artist who I've heard here and there, but I'm just not familiar with. But unfortunately, I have seen no significant news outlets covering this. Only Variety magazine and People magazine. The artist FKA Twigs reveals she developed her own deepfake and AI testimony to Senate. Careers and livelihoods are in jeopardy. She's got a good elevator speech, folks. It's whether you are terrified of our new AI overlords or think it's all great and there might be some hiccups, but it's all more or less going to be good, or the good outweighs the bad. I think her point that these things need to be in our control, not the control of these corporations that already do so much damage, move fast and break things, as some like to say. And this is too important of an issue to just let reign free. And there's just so many unforeseen consequences to where we are heading, where we are barreling through. But interestingly enough, she mentions this idea that she has been creating her own AI programmed with her material, her way of speaking, her thoughts, her ideas, as a way of dealing, a way of interacting, engaging with her fans. And while I don't like the idea of interacting with a fake artist who I am a fan of, I get it. And again, her point is keeping the power in her own hands, her own control. So yeah, you can find out more over at that People Magazine link, and or just search FKA Twigs, deepfake AI, congressional hearings, and you'll find more about it there. Oh, there's so much more I thought about covering tonight. There's just a ton of news, as usual, over the Flipboard. This strange wreckage discovered on Farmer's Field in Saskatchewan features a brief commentary by our friend Chris Rutkowski. And what else we got? There's, oh yes, the Vatican preparing guidelines for apparitions and other supernatural phenomena. This is pretty significant. It's, I think, going to be released on May 17th. And it'll be interesting to see what they say. I believe it's been since the 70s was the last time they issued any kind of official guidelines on the paranormal, and especially things like apparitions. And in this case, they're talking about angels, visions of Christ, the Blessed Virgin Mary, that sort of thing. The article mentions Fatima and how the visions of the sun and that famous incident, it took the church a long time to recognize that as being something that they considered authentic and supernatural. So many other articles. Brazil's catastrophic weather spawns spat of conspiracy theories. This is very much in line with what we were covering a week or two ago about all the extreme weather that we're now experiencing, and it seems so much more prevalent, and probably is, and is likely due to things like climate change. Of course, are attracting conspiracy theories about HAARP, the antenna array in Alaska, as well as chemtrails and cloud seeding in the case of Saudi Arabia, where we were talking about in the previous episode most recently. All these things are real things to be concerned about, and are potential things that I think people should look into as real and able to affect weather. However, like anything, you shouldn't be jumping to conclusions, and certainly shouldn't be harassing other people like meteorologists, or spreading ideas as if they are gospel when you just don't know. That's my militant agnostic perspective on that. And of course, this article over Popular Mechanics. An engineer says he's found a way to overcome Earth's gravity. Woohoo! Finally! Our hoverboards are in the mail. And there's just been so much. I hope you, if you're in North America, I hope you got to see the Aurora Borealis late in the night. I unfortunately have not yet seen this, and probably will not get that chance again. But the solar maximum period, the solar storms happening on the sun, are doing what they do and interacting with our electromagnetic sphere around the Earth and causing beautiful displays much further south than most of us have ever seen. Look at that. I can't imagine. I want to imagine. I plan on going places where I know I will be able to see these aurora. I think that is fantastic, and you've probably seen a lot of these beautiful photographs. Interestingly enough, apparently it was harder to see with the naked eye, but folks' phones were able to pick it up. Sometimes it's the other way around, and just some other wacky wildlife headlines that we didn't get to. Fisherman hooks prehistoric 200-pound alligator snapping turtle before catching monster alligator gar. This is a Kentucky angler, was in Texas and caught both of these things, and caught and released. These are really, you can see the pictures there. This massive turtle. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Victor. Massive turtle, 200-pound alligator snapping turtle. And also this viral video of shark caught in the Guadalupe River leads response from city of New Braunfels. Yes, the bull sharks can live in freshwater and saltwater. Tubers beware. I don't think bull sharks are normally considered dangerous, but well, that's going to be it for tonight, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you spreading the word, tuning in live or Memorex. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff. If you think you know somebody who might be interested in these topics, tell them about the show, tell them about the Anomaly Archives. We need your support. We are a 501c3 charity, so you can have tax-deductible donations to us. You can find all the information on how to support us at the website. We have a phone number. We have a P.O. box. And who knows, we might finally, after a few years now, have a new place soon. Fingers crossed. Thoughts and prayers, folks. All right. Good night, everybody.